How does climbing a mile of stairs sound to you for a fun vacation idea? Well, if this sounds like your kind of vacation, keep watching, because we'll be taking a look at one of the most popular trails in the Smoky Mountains, Chimney Tops, after which you can decide for yourself if the view is worth the work. Welcome to Bear Facts, where we explore the Smoky Mountains one bear fact at a time. Okay, so I might have exaggerated a little when I said it was a full mile of stairs to the top of Chimney Tops, but I do not exaggerate when I say that you will walk steadily uphill for a full mile to reach the summit of this extremely popular trail. But before I get ahead of myself, let's learn a little more about the trail and what you can expect before you get to that last uphill mile. Chimney Tops is unique for the fact that it's one of the few fully exposed rock formations found in the Smoky Mountains. When visiting the Smokies, most people are amazed and in awe of the blue and green sea of trees and hills. The mist that seems to hover over the distant mountains is also a puzzle to many, but if you think about it, makes sense why the stubborn mist never leaves. With all that vegetation and natural source of water freely moving below, it makes sense that you would have a lot of humidity gathering in the air, giving the mountains that blue haze. So when you find a place that isn't covered by the natural vegetation and rock that's completely exposed, then it becomes a natural curiosity. And modern man isn't the first to notice this. The Cherokee had a name for the peak, roughly translated fork antler. The name is based on one of their legends. It's also one of the oldest trails in the park, the peak drawing in people from miles away because of its visibility. Man has always been driven to find the highest point and stand on a place where you can touch the clouds. Chimney Tops is one of the few places in the park where you can stand in one place and be completely surrounded with the scale and dizzying heights of the mountains. You can actually feel all of the 4,724 feet of air below and around you, with a completely unobstructed view of the hills from every angle. From here, you can actually feel like you're standing on top of a mountain. This is the true draw of Chimney Tops, to feel like you're standing high above everyone else and can see for miles in every direction. But the hike to this amazing view isn't as easy as some would leave you to believe. Chimney Tops is one of the first major attractions you hit once entering the park. There is really only one way to get there from Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge, and that's to enter the park from Route 441. Whether you take the bypass from Pigeon Forge or enter the park directly from Gatlinburg, you end up in the same place. A side note about 441 is that it's the main artery of the park. It's the bloodline of traffic from one end of the park to the other. When this road is closed for any reason, your access to the park is completely cut off. And the Chimney Tops is at a point in the park where this can easily happen. Snow, ice, a landslide, or wind advisories, any one of these can cut you off from your goal. It's disappointing when it happens, but they're doing it with our safety in mind. I'm pointing this out for your information and to help you when planning your visit. Winter and early spring are the most common times that the road will be closed. The park officials will open the road as soon as the pass is safe. But keep this in mind, it can happen any time. I would encourage you to stop at the Sugarland Visitor Center before heading up to the trail. There are several reasons for this. The most important thing is that there are bathrooms here. The actual trailhead of Chimney has no bathrooms, so it's a good, reliable place to stop. There are bathrooms in the picnic area, which we will talk about later, but they aren't open year-round. The other reason to stop at Sugarland is to get a park pass. In March of 2023, the park began to issue parking passes to all visitors who plan on parking their car for more than 15 minutes at a time when in the Smoky Mountain National Park. You can purchase your pass at the visitor center or online. If you're getting a 1 or 1 week pass from home, you will need to print it out before coming. The final reason I suggest people stop at the visitor center is that there is a wealth of knowledge and resources to be found inside. Inside, they have a store, maps, people answering and talking with guests, and a museum of all the wildlife and fauna you will find in the Smoky Mountains. It's a great place to learn a little about the area and ask questions of the knowledgeable, friendly staff inside. Once you leave the visitor center, you will begin to wind your way up the mountain and have the opportunity to see a lot of really great views. The view of Chimney Tops is visible from the lower elevations. It's an impressive view and a popular place for many people to stop and take photographs. There are two parts of Chimney Tops, the Chimney Top picnic area and the Chimney Top trailhead. You will see the Chimney Top picnic area first. This is an extremely popular place where people go to enjoy the river, rock hop, picnic, and just hang out. There are bathrooms here, but as was mentioned earlier, they are closed in winter and until late spring. The actual Chimney Tops trail is almost another 2.5 miles up the road. On your way, you'll get your first opportunity to pass through one of the famous Smoky Mountain tunnels. I do want to warn those new to the area. There is an extremely unusual tradition for visitors to honk their horns as they pass through the tunnel. It's loud and very unnerving if you don't expect it, but it's also a fun, long-standing tradition that many guests enjoy. I always encourage visitors to consider going on this hike either later in the day or very, very early. As you head closer to the trailhead, you'll quickly learn why. Parking is very challenging at Chimney Tops trailhead area. It's a very popular trail and many people want to try and go early in the morning. The real issue is that there are only 3 close areas you can legally park. We've learned that if you get to the trailhead closer to 3 or 4 p.m., the morning crowd is just finishing up and leaving, so you're more likely to find parking at that time. The Chimney Tops are very popular because of the spectacular views, but also because it's a pretty short hike. The trail is considered an out and back, meaning you go to the end and come back. It's not a loop. You do get to see everything twice. In the forums, many people ask if it's an easy hike or not. Well, the answer is subjective. It's only 3.6 miles, a relatively short hike for the Smoky Mountains. What makes this a challenging hike is that you see almost 1,300 feet of elevation gain in less than 2 miles. This roughly equates to a little over 100 flights of stairs. The majority of it happens at the last mile. So it's not an easy hike if you're not used to climbing and walking up hills. When you compare it to the LeConte hike, which is roughly 13 miles and 3,000 feet of elevation gain, you can see why I would call it a short hike. Before heading up the mountain, I would suggest taking a few things with you. Because it's a shorter hike, we usually only take a small backpack with a few items such as water, bug repellent, ice cleats if it's winter or early spring, and a snack. I would highly suggest walking sticks if you have joint issues and shoes with good traction. In the spring, the forest floor is covered in wildflowers in full bloom. The trail up the mountain is beautiful, but you really don't get many vistas or vantage points to look out from until later in the hike. You will follow the water for about a mile into the trip. Even if you can't see it, you'll be able to hear it in the distance. In the early spring, you might get the chance to spot areas where the water is trickling down the mountains, and bright green moss grows in thick clumps around the rocks and waterways. The trail itself is pretty well packed down. You will encounter areas with more rocks and exposed tree roots that can get a little tricky, but footing is easy and not very difficult. You might have to cross a few puddles and muddy areas, depending on the time of the year and if there has been any rain recently. But for the most part, it's a dry trip. We've never really encountered much in the way of bugs, but it can get buggy at times. I would always suggest that people remain on the main trails and avoid detours into the forest. Keep in mind when you're hiking anywhere in the Smoky Mountains that rattlesnakes and copperheads are pretty common. They are timid animals and would prefer not to be anywhere you are, but they can be found on main trails and will attack if provoked. Always check your footing and never sit on a log unless you check under it first. It isn't until you hit the halfway point that the landscape changes significantly. You will hit on a crossway that points in two directions. If you take the left turn, you will start on the road prong trail. If you head right, you will have less than a mile before getting to the Chimney Top summit. At this point, you get to see something new and different. Stairs, and lots of them. There are over 600 stairs to the top of the mountain. It isn't until you think you are at the top that another round of stairs looms over you and around the bend. One thing I've never understood is the trail etiquette that says people walking down a narrow area should give way to people heading up the stairs. Why? If I'm climbing up a steep stairway, I'm more than happy to stop and rest while they pass me. The nice thing about this area is that there is more to see. You can also pretend to be taking photos or admiring the views while actually resting. I use my water bottle frequently to take those breaks. So many might ask, is it really worth the work? My answer is simply yes. When you reach the summit, there is a platform for people to stop and admire the view. You get a good view from here, and it's a nice place to stop, but many people don't stop here. If you're a true risk taker, then you might be tempted to keep going. You see, in 2016, there was a pretty good sized forest fire in the Smoky Mountains. Some of you might have heard of it, but the damage the fire caused is still felt in the mountains. Chimney Tops was one of the areas that got a lot of damage. Because of the loss of vegetation, this already exposed area became even more exposed. With the loss of this vital root system, the substrate of the mountainside has become very weak. Because of this, when the forest officials reopened the trail in 2017, the last quarter of a mile stretch was shut down to visitors. If you walk past the observation platform, you'll see a fence and a warning sign to keep out. It's pretty hard to miss. If you choose to ignore the sign and go around the fence, the last part of the hike is easy. You will have to navigate around some fallen trees and hope the ground doesn't begin to avalanche under your feet, but if you make it to the cliff, you are in for a true treat. From here, you will straddle a genuine ridge line. If you turn right or left, you're looking out and down over 2,000 feet on either side. It's exhilarating and a little intimidating being on this spot. It still remains one of my favorite views of the mountain. Of course, what I mean to say is that it would be if I actually ignored those signs and went beyond the posted sign. There are a few people who are so adventurous as to keep moving beyond the views of the filmed area and climb to the top of the Chimney Top peak. I have been told that the views are stunning and it's exhilarating to experience, but that's beyond my adventure threshold and I will defer to the experts on this. I have also been told that the gravel is extremely loose and not stable for walking on. I would say that most people we have met on the trail respect the park's warning and don't move past the gate. If you have young children, I would be even more wary of going past this area as well. The ground seems to be stable enough until you get to the ridge line, but I don't know what's happening below my feet. I will say that in the last 2 years, there has been a significant sign of vegetation regrowth, but I'm not an expert and I won't claim that the area is safe for anyone to be on. The climb down the mountain was what really did me in. If you have joint issues, this can be a jarring experience. I did use my walking sticks liberally, and my calves really felt it for the next 2 days. That muscle group is harder to target in the gym than you would realize, but it was well worth the trip and we really enjoyed the hike. So here's my takeaway for the Chimney Tops hike. 1, it's a lot harder than you would think. Though it's less than 4 miles, you are climbing a mountain still and will see a lot of stairs. 2. It's a great family hike. There aren't as many sudden steep drops and less places for enthusiastic youngsters to slip. But there is always a danger of this when you're in the mountains, so be aware that there are still areas that can be extremely dangerous. 3. It's a great hike if you're looking for something short and won't take up the entire day. But still, make sure you are prepared. Bring water and a pair of good shoes. 4. Bring your fishing pole. The water here is good for fishing and you can get a 2-for-1, a hike and a fishing experience. Make sure you watch my video on the trout and elk where I talk about fishing regulations in the park. And finally, take your time and enjoy the hike. Keep in mind that you're looking at over 1 million years of history. These mountains have been around a long time, and taking an extra minute to admire the splendor and beauty of them is going to be one of the more rewarding experiences in your life. Take the time to regroup and really experience the natural world, and try and hold on to that sense of peace with you when you get back to civilization and the craziness of the world you're returning to. As always, I hope you have enjoyed my video and I thank you for watching. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.